Welcome to Confessions of a Terrible Leader, where real leaders share the raw truth about the lessons they learned the hard way so you don't have to. Join our host, Layci Nelson, founder of Transcend Leadership Collective and former terrible leader. On this podcast, we invite you to step into the confessional and get real with the messy stories and behind-the-scenes reality of leadership. Let's get to it. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. I'm your friendly neighborhood podcast producer, Mary Scott, here today with CEO and founder of Transcend Leadership Collective, Layci Nelson. Layci, welcome back.
It's so good to be here. I actually really look forward to these Q&As with you, Mary. They are a favorite part of our recording rhythm. And it's good practice to sit on the other side. It's a reminder of what it takes to answer questions flying at you.
Right. Yes, it's good. It's a lovely change of pace and it's just fun. Something different, something to kind of shake things up a bit. And yes, good practice to be on the other side of things. And speaking of that, our last Q&A, dear listeners and viewers, if you remember, was 2026 leadership trends, which is a packed topic. And one that cannot fully be unearthed in a single episode and probably not even multiple episodes. But we're going to bring part 2 to you today of 2026 leadership trends, noting that oh my gosh, here, I'm going to say it again. You know what I'm going to say? We are in highly unprecedented times.
Right. 1 month is a lifetime right now.
Yes, it does feel that way. It absolutely feels that way. So we're just going to kind of dive back into that topic, things that you're observing, Layci, articles that you're reading, and of course, what teams that you're working with, leaders that you're working with, what are you hearing? What are the types of things you're receiving in this realm of unprecedented times? Let's just get into it. What's on your mind with this?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, when I was preparing for today's conversation and thinking about what you just said, how do I synthesize all of this, talk about it? Really, it comes down to there's 2 perspectives right now. There's what is trending in the big publications. So Deloitte, Harvard, HBR, IMD, like the big guns out there, right? What are we seeing? And what's really interesting to note is they usually lag behind what's coming next. They are not cutting edge themselves, but they are more of reporting on this is what's happening. This is what's been studied. So they lag a little bit behind real time. So I've been observing what is happening. What are we actually seeing in the market? What are the big publications and revered experts in the field? How are they reporting on it? And then where are we seeing divergence from those trends? And where are we seeing cutting edge thought leadership from voices that I am predicting boldly that are going to be influencing what we read 6 months to a year from now in the bigger publications?
Sure.
A way to really think about the divergence or the situation in general of 2026, the state of 2026 leadership and where are we going?
Yes.
Leadership really is shifting from managing performance to managing human energy and clarity in complex systems. We are seeing a lot of factors at play. I'm not going to beat the AI horse to death. I think there's like 9,000 podcasts out there about that right now.
Oh, man.
But we are.
Yes.
And what's interesting is that, and I think I talked about it a little bit on our first one, the necessity for focusing on human and AI collaboration and decision augmentation and using it to enhance. And what we're not hearing as much about yet is in the leadership spheres, it is also already starting to serve the role of being an identity disruptor for those at the top. Because when AI is doing a lot of, a lot of that thinking, leaders are just left going, well, who am I now in this system? And it's usually not happening at a conscious level. They're feeling this wobbliness, but they're not able to identify necessarily where that is coming from. And so that really shifts into the expansion of understanding leadership across a lot of different issues, the dimensions of primary leadership capability, understanding how we view complexity, understanding culture, understanding how we develop leadership in others. Right now, those domains largely are about strategic thinking and adaptability. Important, right? You got to be able to do that as a leader. But the people that now are positioned to come out on top, given the world that we currently are in. And when I say on top, I don't just mean your bottom line. I don't just mean dominating the world. I mean, like, you're still a healthy human that can function and haven't been completely torn down and lost your key relationships in life because you just cannot keep up the pace and your capacity's at zero, right?
Mm.
What we're seeing, and this ties into the identity disruption, we're in this era where leadership is requiring an expansion of consciousness from the leader in self-awareness and the ability to make sense of a lot of change happening really fast. They're not just decision makers. They're meaning makers. They're interpreting things for their team. They are understanding that culture really is a lived emotional system that is shaped by micro interactions. It's shaped by what's happening in the world outside. It's not confined to where we report for work every day.
Yes.
And really understanding the dynamics of belonging, given that we're in a world that is more connected online and social media, but disconnected. We are hungry for connection and analog life. I just threw a million concepts out there because that's how my brain works. So Mary, ask questions, please.
Yes, yes. The thing that is tricky is those are all things that are happening in real time. And as I was listening to you kind of provide this initial like exegesis of these current challenges, every single one of them is incredibly complex.
Yes.
And to navigate that, gosh, I was just thinking this morning about how so many leaders at this time have to be feeling the pressure of that, feeling like they practically have to be superhuman to navigate all of these incredibly complex and intense challenges. One question I want to ask is, for any leader anywhere who is feeling like they just might be crushed by all of this, what would be some of your best advice you could give a leader who is just feeling the immense pressure and they really need to be able to hone in on what is the most important thing or things? I recognize that there's not one particular most important thing, but if there's leaders, and there are leaders out there who are just feeling, small business owners, small teams, and they're feeling absolutely crushed by the pressure, what would you say to them?
I was just on a couple calls yesterday with some executives in household name companies, and they are director level leaders also feeling the immense pressure. Supply chain is completely disrupted right now. We don't know what's going to happen, and margins, all the best forecasting doesn't last for more than a few days right now with how crazy everything is, right? How volatile and ever changing. I wish there were portions of us in this world that get spared from the complexity. I mean, maybe the people that are not listening to this podcast, but most of us are swimming through the complexity of all of this. And so, yes, I actually have two things that are going to make the difference that I would say focus on these things. One is internal and one is external. So starting with the internal, and I know you hear this from us a lot, but I can't say it enough. And the research is backing us on this. We've been out ahead of it, and I'm proud of us for that. But understanding self-regulation and nervous system leadership of yourself. We don't have to call it nervous system leadership. Let's say understanding how your nervous system works. Understanding when you're regulated, when you're dysregulated, not shaming yourself for it, but having a consciousness and awareness, and also having the awareness of what is going to expand your capacity and what's going to shrink your capacity. The way I described it, I gave a talk a week ago now or so when I was describing what is capacity in the simplest terms. Okay, you know the experience of getting your belt loop stuck on the door handle and it just jerks you back like violently. And some days, if that happens, you're like, oh, that was annoying. And, you're like, just kind of brush it off. Other days, you're ready to burn the world down.
Inexplicable rage.
Yes, just absolute rage, instant rage. You want to rip the freaking door off the hinges, take a sledgehammer to it. Your response is your capacity. Is like an example. Some days you can hook your belt loop and your capacity is big and you're like, oh, that was annoying. Other days you're getting ready to call the contractor because you just busted through the door and the drywall and it's over, So understanding ourselves and what feeds that expansion and contraction of our own ability and knowing when we've got to the state where we shouldn't be making big decisions and where we've disconnected our frontal cortex. It's not because, oh, you're mad and emotional, you're going to make a bad decision. Well, the answer is, yeah, usually you are. But the reason is because you literally can't access your frontal cortex, which is where your reasoning and your ability to collaborate and your ability to innovate and think creatively, all of that lives up there. And when you are low capacity and you're dysregulated, you can't access that. So of course your decisions aren't going to be as good. Understanding that, it's kind of the why behind it. It's not just, well, yeah, we need to be regulated. You need to be regulated so you can think and you can execute, and also is healthier for you. Like, we're not designed to live permanently in fight, flight, or freeze or fawn.
Oh gosh, no.
No. So inner capacity, understanding yourself, understanding regulation, and understanding what you need to do for yourself to stay with as much capacity as possible, and what to do when you don't have any capacity, because those days happen. That is the first piece of advice. If you're new to it, there's a lot of great resources out there. We can even link some in the show notes, but start understanding that and learn yourself. And yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable to do that, but do it anyway. The second thing is the external. What's going to make the difference and have the impact externally? If you can embody authenticity with your people and transparency and moral courage in real time, if they feel like they can believe you, and those are the things that lead to that, it's not going to make things magically better, but it's going to improve the way it feels to be in the human system of your team. I just was reading this article, I don't know, a while ago. What is time? I was just reading this article, and it was talking about how high levels of business jargon, the people that are the least effective use the most empty words or use the most jargon.
That's very believable.
Like, shocking. Let's circle back. Let's double click on that. Let's, there's a million different ways to say a lot of nothing. Not only are they not saying a whole lot, but it also continues to feed that sense of mistrust of the institution because it lacks authenticity. Like, who talks like that? It lacks authenticity. It lacks transparency. It feels plastic. And right now we are more hungry than ever for things that are real and connections. I think one of the biggest shifts is things that have historically been rewarded in high level executive leadership aren't working anymore. And the ones that can make the adjustment, or the ones that have felt like, well, I never felt like I really fit in to start, you're probably ahead of the game. So those are my two things. I think if you can focus on those, and even those are huge things to unpack on their own, but they're going to be a starting point.
Yeah. Definitely. There's a lot there, the internal and external aspects of that. And I also think that it can be very overwhelming learning the full breadth of what self-regulation can do. But I also just want to encourage people that tiny, tiny changes move the needle. When we're able to take on little tiny bits at a time, it's like, okay, instead of punching a hole through the drywall, I am going to take 3 slow breaths, just 3. I'm not going to do like a 30-minute meditation. I'm not going to enter into all of that and stress myself out with it's just one more large task to do, but just very, very small things can move the needle towards being able to do that. Truly, when we lead ourselves first, that's when we're able to go into leading a team effectively. But it really does start with you need to lead yourself. That is definitely a lot to unpack. Well, Layci, we were able to dive into a little bit more of some of the deeper complexities of leadership trends we're seeing in 2026. It's one of those things where it's like the pool got a lot more narrow, but way more deep.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to wrap up this part 2 of 2026 leadership trends?
If we think about leadership development, starting to see it split into 2 worlds where there's the mainstream evolution, where it's scalable, measurable, data-driven, enterprise-aligned. That tends to be one world and talked about in a silo. And then the other is the cutting edge evolution of leadership, which is a lot of what we talked about today, the personalized, the experiential, identity shifting, willing to get uncomfortable in a good way. There's that silo. And really, the reality is the future is a blend of both. It's understanding that we need to be able to move through both. And it's always a work in progress. If there was one simple, easy answer, there wouldn't be so many leadership people out here in the wilds talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It is not simple, but some elements of it are. So to leave people with the simplest elements of what can you start doing right now, understand what you need to be in a regulated state as much as possible and take a tiny step towards that. And it's unique to each individual. You don't need a 14-step morning routine that starts at 4.
Oh,
it is unique to each individual. But learn it. Start learning yourself in that way. The other piece is get an understanding of the way your team is experiencing you. And if you are demonstrating that level of authenticity and connection that's going to build trust, find the things you're doing right and do them with intention.
Yeah, well said. Thank you for that. Well, friends, there is so much more that can always be said about this, but that's our brief deep dive into 2026 leadership trends part 2. And we'll be back with more very, light and easy topics for the Q&A. We'll be back with more of that next month. And we thank you for listening, watching, and you know the drill, friends. Until next time, go manage like a leader. Thanks for listening to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. If you're feeling brave and have your own terrible leader story that you'd like to share, head over to transcendleadershipcollective.com/podcast to fill out a guest application. We'd love to hear from you. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is hosted by Layci Nelson and produced and edited by Fixation Point Productions. Music is by Leif Olson and Mary Scott from the band The Number of Months. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is a free leadership resource offered by Transcend Leadership Collective. If you are ready to refuse the limits of average leadership and join the leadership revolution, visit transcendleadershipcollective.com to check out our offerings for engaging workshops, strategic planning, and more. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And until next time, go manage like a leader.